Imagine waking up to the roar of a saber-toothed predator echoing through a vast, untamed wilderness. You open your eyes, and you're not in your bed. You're lying in the dry grass, barefoot, with no clothes, no tools, no fire, and no idea which direction is safe. The scorching African sun is already high. There's no clean water in sight, and every bush could be hiding something that wants to kill you. You're not the apex predator here. Out here, you're prey. The rules of survival are brutal, and the odds? Well, let's just say you wouldn't last one day in prehistoric Africa. So here you are, dropped into the heart of prehistoric Africa, around 2 million years ago. There's no warning, no transition, just you plucked from your cozy, modern life and thrown naked into the wild. The air is thick with heat and dust, the kind that clings to your skin and parches your throat. The sun is merciless. You instinctively reach for your phone, maybe to call for help, check GPS, or even snap a pic, but there's nothing in your hand. No phone, no water, no shoes, no clue. You look around. It's flat savanna stretching as far as the eye can see, broken only by scattered trees and thorny shrubs. In the distance, something moves. You freeze. Is it a zebra? Maybe an antelope? Or is it something hunting one? You quickly realize the problem. Out here, you're not at the top of the food chain. Not even close. In fact, you're the slowest, weakest, and most clueless creature in this ecosystem. The lions stalking the plains? They hunt in coordinated packs. The leopards, silent, patient, deadly. Even the hyenas, often laughed off as scavengers, are built to crush bone. And they're hungry. Let's talk about the landscape for a second. The African savanna isn't just hot, it's unforgiving. Daytime temperatures soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's no AC, no sunscreen, no filtered water. Shade is a luxury. At night, it drops fast, and you'll wish you had even the thinnest layer of clothing. But you don't. Every thorn scratches, every insect bites, and the buzzing of flies is relentless. Your modern immune system isn't ready for the parasites, the bacteria in that muddy waterhole, or the venom from a bite you might not even notice until it's too late. You take a step barefoot onto the rough terrain. Every rock, stick, and thorn is a potential injury. And out here, a small cut can become a big problem. Infection without antibiotics is basically a death sentence. You might think you can just walk until you find help. But where do you go? Which direction is safe? There are no signs. No trails, no sound of traffic. Only the wind, distant animal calls, and the ever-present awareness that you are completely exposed. Then there's the thirst. It creeps in faster than you'd expect. You haven't had water in hours, and your body knows it. Your lips crack, your skin dries, and your vision starts to blur. You spot a small stream and run to it, desperate, only to realize it's teeming with insects, animal droppings, and worse. Do you drink? If you do, you risk dysentery or worse. If you don't, dehydration will take you down within a day or two quicker in this heat. Every minute, you're calculating your odds. Should you try to climb that tree for safety? You're not sure if you even can. You haven't climbed anything since high school gym class. Should you follow that herd of animals? Are they leading to water or walking straight into predator territory? There's no map, no guide. You are making decisions based purely on instinct, something modern life has trained out of you. You're not equipped for this. Your biggest daily challenge yesterday was picking what show to binge. Today, it's staying alive until sunset, and then you hear it. A low, guttural growl, not far off. It's deep, primal, and your brain kicks into panic mode before you can even process it. Adrenaline floods your system. You run where you don't know. You just run. The grass slaps at your legs, the sun blinds you, your lungs burn, and the sound behind you is getting closer. Congratulations, you've just learned lesson number 1 of prehistoric Africa. You are always being hunted. You stumble through the tall grass, breath ragged, heart pounding so loudly it drowns out the growl you heard. Every step is painful now, your bare feet bruised and cut. You slow down, panting, hoping whatever was behind you has given up. But that's wishful thinking. In this world, nothing gives up easily. Predators don't just hunt for sport. They hunt because if they don't, they die. And you're the easiest meal they've seen all day. Still gasping, you duck behind a thorn bush, trying not to make a sound. Thorns jab into your skin, but you bite your lip. Pain is better than being spotted. You glance through the gaps in the bush, eyes scanning the horizon. Nothing. Maybe you got lucky. Maybe it was just your mind playing tricks. But deep down, you know better. Out here, you're not paranoid, you're just paying attention. Your ancestors who ignored those instincts didn't make it. Let's talk about those ancestors for a second. You're living through exactly what early humans experienced every day. Except they had one key advantage over you. They were born into it. Their senses were sharper, their bodies tougher. They knew the landscape, the animal calls, the scent of danger on the wind. You're from a world of grocery stores, GPS, and Uber Eats. They were hunters and gatherers. You're a screen scroller. It's not your fault, but that gap. That's why you're not going to last long. And it's not just animals. Even the plants are out to get you. Some berries look edible, but they're not. Some leaves might seem safe, but touch the wrong one, and you'll be dealing with a rash that could blind you or worse. Water might be scarce, but even when you find it, it's usually contaminated or guarded. Nile crocodiles patrol rivers like prehistoric gatekeepers, invisible under the surface until it's far too late. 1 second, you're kneeling to drink, and the next, you're gone in a flash of jaws and water. Let's say somehow you survive the animals. Now comes the next cruel joke of this environment: exposure. Without clothing or shelter, you're entirely at the mercy of the elements. The sun burns your skin during the day, and the cold gnaws at your bones at night. There's no fire to warm you. You haven't eaten. Your energy is fading. The breeze that once felt refreshing now just reminds you how alone you are. Every noise in the darkness becomes a potential threat. Your mind starts to fracture under the pressure. You begin to hallucinate shadows moving, whispers in the trees, and still you can't sleep. Not deeply, not safely. And it's in that moment, somewhere between dusk and midnight, that it really hits you. You're not equipped for this. No amount of gym strength, book smarts, or wilderness documentaries could prepare you for the sensory overload, the fear, the exhaustion. Out here, there's no reward for effort, just consequences for mistakes. Nature isn't cruel because it wants to be. It's cruel because that's the only way it works. Kill or be killed. Adapt or die. Then, just as you're trying to fight the urge to curl up and give in, you hear rustling. Heavy steps. Close. You hold your breath. Something is moving nearby. Too heavy to be an antelope. Too slow to be a bird. It's circling. A part of you thinks, maybe it won't find me. Maybe if I stay still enough, silent enough, it'll pass. But the smarter part of your brain is already screaming, move. Don't freeze. Don't stay here. Run, climb, do something. But your body? It's frozen. You're terrified, and rightfully so. Because this is prehistoric Africa. And every sound in the night could be the last thing you ever hear. You don't know how long you've been crouched there, holding your breath, paralyzed by fear. Seconds feel like hours. The sound of something big moving nearby grows louder, then quieter, then closer again circling. You can't see it, but it knows you're there. And that's when you realize this isn't a random encounter. It's a hunt, and you're the target. Your body is shaking now, not from the cold, but from raw, unfiltered terror. Your fight or flight response is screaming, but you're too weak to run and too vulnerable to fight. Even if you had the strength, what would you use? Your fists? Against claws and teeth? This isn't a survival movie where cleverness saves the day. Out here, cleverness without preparation just gets you killed a little slower. Suddenly, there's a snarl low and close. A pair of glowing eyes catches the faint moonlight. It's not your imagination. It's real. Whatever it is, it's testing you, waiting for a mistake. That's what apex predators do. They don't rush. They let the fear wear you down. Let exhaustion and darkness tip the odds even further in their favor. That's the rule here. Wait, wear down, and strike when the prey is too broken to resist. And then, just as quickly as it started, silence. The footsteps vanish. The growl fades. Nothing but the rustling of grass in the wind. Is it gone? Is it stalking you from a new angle? You don't know. That uncertainty is its own kind of torture. Every second that passes feels like a test, and you're failing. Your stomach growls violently, reminding you that it's been almost a full day since you last ate. Not that there's anything around here you could safely eat even if you tried. You stagger to your feet and start walking, not because you know where you're going, but because staying still feels more dangerous. The ground is uneven and sharp, and each step sends a jolt of pain up your legs. Your body's breaking down. Dehydration, starvation, fear, they're all piling on. And still, you press forward. Because there's no alternative. You either move or you die. As the sky begins to lighten with the first hints of dawn, you catch a glimpse of something in the distance. A cluster of trees, a slight depression in the land. Could be water, could be shelter, could be the end of the line. You don't care. You just keep walking. The sun starts to rise, golden and brutal. Another day in prehistoric Africa. You've made it to morning. Barely. But here's the truth. You're not safe. You're just lucky. And luck doesn't last out here. Because every single day in this place is a battle. And the predators? They're patient. They've been doing this a lot longer than you. You may have survived your first night, but in prehistoric Africa, survival isn't a one-time event. It's a constant negotiation with death. And eventually, it collects. So ask yourself, do you still think you could have made it? Because chances are, you wouldn't last one single day. You've made it through the first brutal night in prehistoric Africa barely. But let's be honest, without any tools, knowledge, or survival instincts, you were a walking buffet. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine you weren't a modern human dropped into this world, but a native, a real early human. No shoes, no fire, no weapons, but a brain wired for survival. This isn't your worst nightmare. It's your natural habitat. And that changes everything. Let's rewind 2 million years. Homo habilis, the so-called handy man, is wandering the same plains you just barely crawled through. Unlike you, he doesn't panic when he hears something in the grass. He doesn't freeze or cry out. He listens. He moves with purpose, low to the ground, alert but calm. He's been doing this his whole life. His eyes are trained to spot patterns, broken branches, tracks in the dirt, movement that doesn't belong. His ears know the difference between a breeze and a predator's footstep. His nose can pick up the scent of rot, blood, or rain in the distance. Even more importantly, he's not alone. That's a major difference between you and him tribe. Early humans didn't just survive solo. They thrived in groups. That group gave them eyes in every direction, hands to help carry food, and bodies to defend against attacks. Alone, you're weak. But as a tribe, you're a force. Watch a lion pride try to take down a group of humans with sharp sticks and a tight circle formation. Not so easy. Even predators think twice when they see numbers, And that was one of early humanity's greatest survival tools, cooperation. But it wasn't just numbers. It was strategy. You were reacting to fear. Early humans turned fear into planning. You ran blindly through the savannah. They watched, waited, tracked. They learned migration routes, weather patterns, animal behaviors. They didn't run from fire. They learned how to control it. The brain you have today, the same one that scrolls TikTok and gets overwhelmed by email, evolved from this primal need to observe and outthink a brutal world. Think about it. Why do we see faces in shadows or feel chills when something moves in our peripheral vision? That's leftover wiring. Hyper-awareness kept us alive. Anxiety? That was a survival advantage. The ancestors who jumped at every suspicious sound were the ones who didn't get eaten. So while today that might feel like overthinking, back then it was your early warning system. And let's not forget endurance. You may have struggled to walk barefoot for half a mile yesterday, but early humans were designed for long-distance tracking. We're one of the few species on Earth that can run for hours, yes, run without overheating, thanks to sweat glands and upright posture. That made us persistent hunters. No, we weren't the fastest, and we definitely weren't the strongest, but we could outlast just about anything. That gazelle? Sure, it outruns you in a sprint. But over the course of hours, as it tires and overheats, your tribe catches up. That's how food was caught, through patience, tracking, and outlasting. You didn't need claws. You needed stamina. And with that food came something else, learning. Once you had the calories, the brain could grow. Once the brain grew, you could remember, adapt, teach. You weren't just surviving anymore. You were strategizing, building mental maps of the terrain, passing down knowledge. You didn't need a GPS, you were the GPS. So no, early humans didn't survive by being tougher or stronger than their predators. They survived because they were smarter, because they watched the world like a puzzle and slowly figured out the rules. Rules you never had to learn. Which is why if you went back in time with no tools and no training, you'd be dead by sundown. But them? They were just getting started. Now that we've seen how early humans were wired for survival, let's get deeper into what that actually looked like. Because it has one thing to say they were adaptable. It has another thing to understand what that meant on the ground, minute by minute, decision by decision. Every day in prehistoric Africa was a test, and the answers weren't written down anywhere. You had to know them, or you didn't survive long enough to try again. Let's start with food. You're hungry, but you can't walk into a store or even cook something on a fire yet. That came later. Right now, your options are roots, insects, maybe the occasional carcass left behind by a bigger predator. But you can't just eat anything. Some roots are poisonous. Some berries are deadly. Some insects will mess you up. So how did early humans figure it out? Trial, error, observation. One member of the group eats a certain nut, gets sick. That nut goes on the mental nope list. Another eats a grub and seems fine. Grub becomes dinner. These were life and death experiments, carried out over generations. And once something was learned, it was passed on not just through words, but through mimicry, through rituals, through watching the elders and copying what worked. That's culture in its rawest form. And that culture kept people alive. Water was another challenge. Modern humans don't think about water until the faucet stops working. But out there, water was life and also danger. You couldn't just drink from the first pool you saw. Parasites, crocodiles, territorial animals, you had to know which spots were safe and which ones were death traps. And you learned that not by Googling it, but by paying close attention to the behavior of animals. If antelope were drinking calmly, chances were good it was safe, at least for the moment. If birds were circling, but nothing was landing, that was a big red flag. And when it came to shelter, forget the idea of building a cabin. Shelter meant finding overhangs, caves, dense trees, anything that could offer shade by day and warmth by night. You had to know where to hide, how to stay unseen, how to blend in. That's why early humans developed such a deep understanding of their environment. They weren't just living in nature, they were studying it every second. The ground told stories. A snapped twig meant something had passed through. A fresh print in the dirt meant something big and close. You didn't walk blindly, you read the land like a book. And don't forget the social structure. In your modern life, you can live alone if you want to. Not back then. Back then, being alone was a death sentence. The tribe was everything, not just for protection, but for knowledge, for emotional support, for raising children. If one person got sick or injured, the group either adapted or they all suffered. That closeness, that dependency, forged powerful bonds. Empathy wasn't just a nice feeling, it was survival tech. You needed to care. You needed to protect each other. That's where the roots of family, society, even morality started around ancient fires. In the middle of a kill zone, where staying together meant staying alive. And it's not just about how people lived. It's about how they thought. We tend to assume early humans were simple, animalistic, barely thinking. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Survival required imagination, planning, foresight. That's why you'll find cave art dating back tens of thousands of years. That's why early tools became more complex over time. These weren't brutes, they were thinkers, tinkerers, problem solvers. They looked at a stick and thought, what if I sharpen this? They watched a predator and thought, what if we trap it instead of running? That kind of thinking didn't come from safety or comfort. It came from being constantly on the edge, pushed to adapt, forced to evolve. That's how the human brain became what it is today. It wasn't shaped in a classroom. It was forged in fear, hunger, fire, and blood. So when people say, you wouldn't last a day out there, it's not an insult. It's just a reminder. You are never meant to do this alone, not as you are now. You're the result of thousands of years of group survival, of passed down knowledge, of environments so dangerous they made intelligence the only way forward. You're not soft, you're evolved for something different. But your ancestors? They were the ones who faced death every day and learned how to outthink it. So you've seen how early humans adapted to their brutal world, how they turned fear into foresight, chaos into culture. But here's the twist. The traits that kept them alive back then, they still live inside you. Right now. In your body, in your instincts, in your deepest reflexes. You're walking around with the hardware of a survivor, even if you've never had to test it. But if you ever did, if the modern world vanished overnight, you'd be shocked at what starts kicking in. Let's talk about pain tolerance. You probably think you hate pain. You avoid it, numb it, treat it like something to escape. But early humans didn't have that option. Pain was information. You stepped on a thorn, you learned to look where you walk. You got burned, you learned not to touch fire. Pain wasn't the enemy, it was a teacher. And over time, humans built up an incredible tolerance for it. Ever notice how in a crisis, people sometimes don't feel pain until much later? That's ancient wiring. Your body knows when to shut off the alarms, when survival depends on it. Same goes for instincts. That gut feeling you get when something feels wrong? That's a survival mechanism passed down through the bloodline. Early humans didn't second-guess those instincts. They trusted them. If the air felt off, or the forest went silent, or the birds scattered suddenly, you moved. That wasn't superstition. That was pattern recognition on a subconscious level. You didn't need to see the lion. You just needed to feel that something was off. That kind of hyper-awareness saved lives every single day. And then there's hunger. You've probably skipped a meal and thought, I'm starving. But real hunger, body-weakening, mind-bending hunger is something else entirely. Early humans dealt with it regularly. Their bodies were built to handle long stretches without food and still function. Fasting wasn't a wellness trend, it was a survival reality. And their bodies adjusted. They moved slower, thought differently, but kept going. That same ability lies dormant in you. Even your emotional strength comes from them. We tend to romanticize ancient life as some peaceful time of unity with nature. But no, these people buried their children. They lost friends to animals, disease, or the elements. They suffered, and they endured. Not because they were numb, but because resilience wasn't optional. You grieved, then you hunted. You cried, then you taught your child to climb a tree and stay alive. That quiet strength, that's in your DNA too. And maybe the most impressive part of all creativity. You might not think of imagination as a survival skill, but it was. Early humans imagined tools that didn't exist yet. They looked at a predator and invented strategies to defeat it. They drew maps in the dirt, painted on cave walls, created language. They dreamed forward. They didn't just react to the world, they reshaped it. Slowly, yes. Clumsily, sure. But that was the beginning of human dominance. Not just adaptation, but invention. So here's the truth. You are built to survive. You carry the legacy of people who outlasted ice ages, droughts, disease, and predators that could crush you in one bite. Your soft hands, your indoor lifestyle, your fear of bugs, that's not weakness. That's adaptation to a new kind of jungle. But if you were thrown back into prehistoric Africa with the knowledge and training of your ancestors, you'd remember. Maybe not in your mind right away, but your body, your instincts, your fire to live, that would wake up fast. The difference between you and them isn't just time. It's environment. Pressure creates adaptation. And prehistoric Africa? It was pressure like no other. So don't ever think of early humans as less evolved or primitive. They were geniuses of survival. And if the world ever fell apart, if the safety nets disappeared, you might just find out that the wildest parts of you, the most ancient ones, are still alive and waiting. Because even now, deep down, your body remembers. And somewhere in your blood, so does your soul. So, now you know. Prehistoric Africa wasn't some rugged adventure. It was a daily fight for survival, where nature didn't care about your intelligence, your diet, or your dreams. If you were there just you, no tools, no tribe, you probably wouldn't last one day. And not because you're weak, but because you've evolved for a different world. Still, the core of what made humans unstoppable back then, it's still in you. The instincts, the endurance, the ability to adapt that hasn't gone anywhere. You just haven't needed it lately. But it's there, waiting. Waiting for challenge. Waiting for purpose. Waiting for that moment when comfort vanishes and you have to reach deep into something primal. When that moment comes, you might surprise yourself. If this made you think twice about how far we've come and how close we still are to our wild roots, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Do you think you would last a day out there? Be honest. And if you want to dive deeper into the brutal, brilliant world of early humans, check out our other videos. Because trust me, this was just the beginning. And remember, comfort is temporary, but survival, that's forever.